Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our semblance of our Memorial Day dedication, which we do each year in memory to the military personnel and even civilians, those who answered the call to protect our country. We also remember those in a loving way who waited for their loved ones to come home during those times. And even today, all the men and women in our forces that are in harm's way today, we want to give them honor today. And also, we would like to pay a note of honor to those today who are on the front line fighting this invisible enemy. Our doctors, our nurses, all the EMP people, everyone involved with the medical program. We want to give them a word of honor today for risking their lives and their health to help defeat this invisible, insidious foe. I think right now it's a good time for me to pray. Father, we come to your throne today. I bring with you this ceremony to honor our country and our fallen who paid the ultimate price. I pray, God, that this service is honorable to them, to their memory, and that it, in a sense, does them justice for what they paid for us so that we can enjoy our lives. I ask you, God, to bless the families, God, that waited for their loved ones to come home and they did not. And even now, those that are waiting for their loved ones in harm's way, keep them safe, Lord. Protect them. Bring them back home. And we will be forever grateful and give you honor and glory. And I pray in Christ's name. Amen. Our theme for this year, as we carry a theme every year, is going to be all paid some, but some paid all. And at this moment, I want to call forth our Commander John Browse, who will bring forth the colors for us today.
Please step forward to receive the colors.
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we'd like to introduce the mayor of Merchantville. Mayor Brennan will say some words for us today.
Welcome to all those logging in and joining us from hopefully all over the world for the Borough of Merchantville Memorial Day ceremony. I'm Mayor Ted Brennan, and it is my honor to welcome you to the beautiful Borough of Merchantville. For those of you who regularly attend our Memorial Day ceremony in person, you may notice something slightly different about this year's ceremony. First, I'm coming to you from my mayoral office as opposed to beautiful Wellwood Park. However, as usual, you will see and hear today from many wonderful and talented individuals, young and old, who make the borough and our larger community a wonderful place to live, work, and visit. And given the current state of affairs in our world, our country, and in particular our state, this Memorial Day takes on an added importance, and we are reminded of the need to remember those we have lost. For those memories, as raw as they may be, are what we use to maintain an enduring connection to our friends, family, and loved ones after they are gone. The borough's Memorial Day ceremony brings with it a reminder of a simpler time and provides some level of comfort as we deal with these uncertain times. We observe Memorial Day here in the United States as a way of honoring those men and women who gave the ultimate sacrifice while serving for our United States military. One of those sons of Merchantville is Frederick W. Grigg, the namesake of our American Legion Post 68. We remember the tremendous sacrifice that the men and women gave while serving our military in order to fight for our freedoms and to protect those freedoms which we hold dear. Today, I couldn't be prouder to share this event with the memory of those men and women who gave the ultimate sacrifice and the hardworking men and women of the F.W. Grigg Post 68, without whom we wouldn't be able to hold this ceremony. Thank you to all for joining us today. Welcome to the Borough of Merchantville.
I want to thank the mayor for those words. He's been around for a while. He's a good man. I know him personally. Thank you, Mayor. And now I want to bring forth our post commander. He's been our post commander for a series of years, and he's one of the greatest ones we've ever had. Commander John Brous.
Sit, buddy. Down. Down. That's a good boy. All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for taking the time to join us for this solemn observance known as Memorial Day, a day set aside to remember those who not only answered the call from their country to serve, but also laid down their lives in freedom's name. The book of John states, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." For love of country they went, never to return to the arms of a grateful nation. The pain is felt by family and those left behind. A folded flag in a case or a photo on a mantle is all that remains. For them, every day is Memorial Day. How do we repay them for such a sacrifice? The fact is, we can never repay them. The most honorable thing we can do is remember. By remembering them, we honor them. And by honoring them, we remember. We need to continue to pass the torch from one generation to the next, especially to our young people, so they know freedom's cost and the sacrifice that was made. The obligation is ours, as is the responsibility. Our nation must never forget. We must live our lives to the fullest, for they gave theirs for us to be free. We would do them a great injustice to not live our best lives, making every day count. Even though we are currently living in the shadow of the COVID-19 virus, Stay strong, stay safe, stay positive. I would like to reflect on a historical milestone that just passed earlier this month. May 7th, 2020 marked the 75th anniversary of VE Day, or Victory in Europe, marking the end of World War II in 1945. In total, 405,000 American lives were lost during the war. To all World War II veterans that are still with us, on behalf of the officers and members of Merchantville Post 68, we honor and thank you for your service to this great nation. Since World War I, families would hang a Blue Star flag in their front window to show that a family member that was serving. When word came that their loved one had been killed, the Blue Star was replaced with a Gold Star, informing the community that the family's lost, thus the Gold Star family. I would like to share a poem written in 1918 by Caspar Nathan, touching on such a scenario. Picture a window at sunrise with a blue service star on display. Then picture a window at sunset when a soul that was brave passed away. Picture a mother or sweetheart, proud that the worst has been told. Picture that scene and what it must mean when a blue service star turns to gold. Picture the great field of honor when the struggle for a country holds sway. The young life that's given in battle forms a part of war's record each day. Picture a soldier on duty, vigorous, youthful, and bold, glad that he may serve in the fray, though a blue service star turns to gold. When a blue service star turns to gold, what a tale of affection is told. Duty to country has cost one his all, while others at home are bowed down with the call. In their sorrows, the ones left behind, voice a prayer that is born in mind. Till souls meet on high, they must whisper goodbye when a blue service star turns to gold. To the fallen, your sacrifice was not in vain. You are in our hearts and our minds on this day and forevermore. And I salute you. At this time, I'd like to call our chaplain, Bernie Henderson, to the podium. Thank you.
I have to remove this mask because it fogs up my glasses. We were not able this year to get a viable speaker, as we normally do each year, to speak for whatever theme in our memorial to those who have passed on, and for obvious reasons. First of all, most all the World War II veterans are of that age where they need to stay home, really, and rest. And even the Korean veterans are approaching that age as well. So it was difficult. But we did not want that or this day to pass by without paying honor to them, because we don't know how much longer many of them will be with us. So we decided to speak in honor of both of those wars ourselves, both World War II and the Korean War, which we come today to particularly give honor to. Now we know, of course, that America's involvement in World War II began with the vicious bombing by the Japanese at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. An attack, now I'm not sure of the statistics, depending on where you get them from, but that attack is said to have killed 2,335 Americans, including 2,008 sailors, 109 Marines, 218 Army personnel, and add to that 68 civilians, which make the total of 2,403 people dead. And the battleship Arizona suffered the most casualties with 1,177. And I'm not sure, but I believe I was told that there were some under the Arizona that they never really recovered from under that ship. And even today, the Arizona has become a monument at Pearl Harbor. And many who fought there, who are alive today, have requested that on the day of their death, when they're buried, they want to be buried in and at that monument. As I said before, to my understanding, there were many that went down with the Arizona that they never recovered. But this action by the Japanese did but awaken, as they said themselves, awaken a sleeping giant and called him to arms as never before or since. Almost 80 years ago, then President Theodore Roosevelt, stood before the 77th Congress and said these words. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at the solicitation of Japan, we were still in conversation with that government, looking forward to a maintenance of peace in that area. Indeed, 1 hour after Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing the American island of Oahu, the Japanese ambassador to the United States and his colleagues delivered to our security or our Secretary of State a formal reply to the American message. And while that reply stated that there didn't seem to be any need to continue in negotiations, yet it did not contain any threats or any threat of any armed attack. So the Japanese therefore undertook a surprise offensive, extending throughout the Pacific area. That facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. The people of the United States have already formed their opinions and well understood the implications of the very life and safety of our nation was at stake. President Roosevelt said, "As Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy forces, I have directed all measures to be taken in our defense. And always will our whole nation remember the character of the onslaught against us." He finished by saying these words, "No matter how long it will take us to overcome this horrible invasion, this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through absolute victory. I believe and I interpret the will of the Congress of the United States and the will of the people to assert that we will not only defend ourselves to the uttermost, but will make it very certain that this form of treachery shall never again endanger the United States." Hostilities exist. There's no blinking at the fact that our people, our territory, our interests are in grave danger. With confidence in our armed forces, with the understanding and abounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph. So help us God. He said, I asked the Congress, the 77th Congress, to declare, since we were unprovokedly attacked, to declare war on December 8th, 1941, against the Empire of Japan. I didn't quote every word perfectly, but you get the gist of that. It was a rousing speech. So America's involvement in World War II began on December 8th, 1941, when then President Roosevelt declared so before Congress. And it began with the Japanese in the Pacific area. And 3 days later, Nazi Germany, being an ally of Japan, declared war on the United States. So we went to war on two different continents. But I believe the thrust of our war and our intentions were aimed particularly at the Japanese in the Pacific theater, where the U.S. military was involved with more than 24 campaigns against the Japanese army. Now, there were countless wounded, too many to even number or even count. But there were, in that Asian theater, 111,606 U.S. servicemen that paid the ultimate price. As I said, all paid some, but indeed some paid all. Now in Europe, in the war in Europe, the U.S. was involved in more than 21 or so campaigns against the Germans. And again, there were countless wounded, but we lost over 235,000 men. And certainly some paid all there, and many paid all. There were roughly 298 U.S. servicemen killed each day in World War II, for a total of 346,606 Americans killed who paid that heavy price with their life. Now, all certainly paid some there. We had many wounded, not only physically, but mentally. They all paid some, but some paid all. What can a man give but his life? In Job, the book in the Bible, Job 2:4 says, skin for skin, yea, would a man give all that he has for his life? Well, these did the reverse. They gave their life for all that we have. Now, the battles of World War II on both fronts are too numerous to name. But let me mention a few which began with that evil attack at Pearl Harbor. There was the Battle of Midway, Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, the Battle of the Philippines, the Battle of Guam, Borneo. And then in the European theater, there was the Battle of Nuremberg, the Battle of France, the Battle of the Bulge, the battle at Bastogne, the battles in North Africa, the offense in Italy, Nuremberg, the beach of Utah, the beach of Omaha, Juno, and all those beaches invaded on D-Day, in which all paid some, and some played all. God bless their souls. Now, in a very few years after that, following World War II, the United States got involved in another war in Korea. On June 25th, 1950, the United States entered into the Korean War. Now, this war has been called the Forgotten War in the United States, where coverage of the 1950 conflict was censored, and its memory decades later is often overshadowed and was overshadowed by World War II and also the Vietnam War. But this 3-year war in Korea, which pitted communists against capitalist forces, each other set a stage of tension for many years to follow. North Korea against South Korea, and also the United States. This war also helped to set a tone for Soviet-American rivalries in decades to come, called the Cold War, profoundly shaping, as it did, the world that we lived in for so many years then. And I just wondered why this war was called a conflict in Korea. I thought about it, and I can only think that it was only a political term. It was also said that of the Vietnam War when it first began. It was a conflict. These words are political words. They're political terms. Because when an armed army from another nation with a mandate from that nation to shoot after you and take your life, believe you me, it is a war. The Korean War lasted only 3 years. Or should I say just above 3 years, 1 month past 3 years. It ended on July 27th, 1953, where the U.S. was involved in more than 75 campaigns against communist forces. Which included soldiers from North Korea and China. And in the 1,129 or 28 days, the U.S. suffered numerous wounds, both physically and mentally. But we lost 33,686 men. American lives lost. They paid it all. Everyone paid some, but these paid it all. Now here's an interesting statistic. The Korean War, between the Korean War and the Vietnam War, where the Vietnam War got more post. But in Vietnam, which I was there, we lost 15 men a day. But in Korea, they lost 30 men every day. I think it's fitting for us today to just take a moment and pause, stand in silence just for a moment in honor to these men and women, and let's listen to their voices. Thank you. Let us also, if we know anyone who was in that war or in those two wars, take time today to call them and thank them and tell them that we remember, we have not forgotten, and we thank them for their service. Forgive me if I get a little bit emotional. At this time, in dedication to the MIAs and POWs that many have never come home, I want to call on our financial officer, Bernie Kofort, who will lead in the words to our honor to the MIA POWs.
Thank you, Chaplain Henderson. As Chaplain Henderson had stated, all those casualties of both of those wars. But we also remember our POWs and our MIAs from those wars, and all wars. Over 82,000 of our service members, our brothers and sisters, still unaccounted for. The POW MIA table has a significant place in American Legion protocol, history, and remembrance. This table is our way of symbolizing the fact that members of our profession of arms are missing from our midst. They are commonly called POWs or MIAs. We call them brothers. They are unable to be with us today, so we remember them. The table is set for one is small, symbolizing their frailty of one prisoner alone against his oppressors. Remember. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to our country's call to arms. Remember. The single rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the families and loved ones of our comrades in arms who keep the faith, waiting for their return. Remember. The yellow ribbon tied so prominently on the vase is reminiscent of the yellow ribbon worn upon the lapel and breast of thousands who bear witness to their underlying determination to demand a proper accounting of our missing. Remember. The candle is lit, symbolizing the upward reach of their unconquerable spirit. Remember. A slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of their bitter fate. Remember. There is salt upon the bread plate, symbolic of the family's tears as they wait. Remember. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us tonight. Remember. The chair is empty. They are not here. Remember. All of you who served with them and call them comrades, who depend upon their might and aid and relief upon them, for surely they have not forsaken you. Remember. Until the day they come home, remember.
Yes, remember. We have the greatest propensity to forget. That's in all of us. We have promised to remember. All these monuments behind me, beginning in 1919, and the one for World War II, and the one over there I think is very appropriate, is a monument dedicated to all the wars. We remember. I understand a friend of mine lost a good friend this year. His name is Chad Everett Skog. I want to just mention his name before we start our roll call. We've lost members of our post this year. And as we do every year, we like to call their names as dedicated members of our post, patriotic people. Tell you what, before I do that, let me just read a list of the names of the members of our post who served in World War II and in the Korean War. Edward F. Hill, Joseph Bolts, Helen V. Martin, Steve Macha, John Plassett, James Simpson, Joyce Weaver, and Thomas Young. Now these are all still alive, but we wanted to mention their names, and there's a list of names in our post to those who served in Korea. We want to give, as they say, a shout out to them. David Bernardo, Robert Dish, Lorenzo Leonardo, Robert Ralston, and Jamal T. Sadiq. Now I want to read that list of names of those who have, from our post, passed on since our last service, last Memorial Day. They've gone on to what we call that post-everlasting. William Coleman, William Hinch, Charles McGrady, Robert Ralston, John Rudolph, James Simpson, George Smith, Joseph Stavala, Peter Tepper, and Edward White. Some served in World War II, some in Korea, and some in Vietnam. That song always brings emotion from me. Could have been my song today. By the grace of God, I'm still here, as many of us are. So many of us came back from World War II and Korea and Vietnam. If you know anyone that served in those wars, particularly World War II and Korea, find them and thank them today and tell them that we remembered them. Also, before we go, I want to give honor to those who normally lay wreaths for us every year, have been so dedicated in doing that. The Borough of Merchantville, the Merchantville Historical Society, the Great Merchantville Women's Society or Club, the Merchantville Board of Education, Pennsauken High School, Merchantville Democratic Club, the Merchantville Pennsauken Water Commission, the Mighty Mighty Knights of Columbus, Pennsauken Lions Club, and the Merchantville Niagara Fire Department. Now, I have asked, since we didn't have a singer this year, as we normally do, I have asked all the members, even the scouts, and anyone who'd like to join, come and join us in the singing of God Bless America. Come in close. We have to put our mask on. And we're all going to sing on key, or in key. We ready?
Ready?
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairie to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Hey. That concludes our service. Thank you for being here by video. And God's willing, we'll see you next year in the park.